This podcast is proudly sponsored by Gyro Drilling. They provide world-class drilling solutions for all types of projects. They specialise in auger, aircore and RC drilling. Head to the team at Gyro Drilling for all your mining needs and see how they can help you with your upcoming project. Hello, I'm Ben Kostrich and this is the Market Bull Podcast. As this podcast grows, every subscriber helps. From those of you who watch this on YouTube or to those that listen on Spotify and Apple, every follower helps. If you do this one favour and hit follow on whatever platform you find us on, I promise I will continue to look and find fascinating people across the world and bring their perspectives to you. Thank you and enjoy this episode. So hello, I'm Ben Kostrich and this is the Market Bull Podcast. Joining me on the studio today, a bit of a different conversation, is Blake Burton, the Managing Director of Adisyn, which is listed on the ASX under code AI1. I mean, the realm that we're talking about, it's for us not mining or biotech, it's in the data science, cybersecurity, a lot of different realms in there. So welcome to the show, Blake.
Cheers, Ben. Thanks for having me. Very different to Perth. I know. We're not a mining, exploring company. So it's like, what are we doing here?
When I was going through the prep, I was actually quite excited because there was stuff about cloud infrastructure, cybersecurity, and just some of the services within there. And it's not something that you find very frequently within WA, which leads into the question of how did you get involved and what's your background and how did it get you to being a managing director of this sort of company?
Yeah, I'll try to keep it short. I started out quite young. So I was actually 18 when I started my first business. It was a web hosting business called Net Origin, which I kind of built it up over a number of years. Started out with a business partner. He ended up leaving, but then built that up. It was biggest in Perth at the time when I sold it. It was about 4,000 clients, thousands of websites. Yeah, it was Australia's largest privately owned web host at the time. So, look, we want to expand into Perth. Do you want to get acquired? So ended up having a chat with them and selling. So that was kind of the first chunk of my career. So I was 18, I'm trying to think how old I was when I sold that, maybe 26, 27. While I was actually starting that business, I also worked at PwC as an auditor.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, which was fun. I was 18 or 19. I did a traineeship while I was doing my degree as well. I used to drink a lot of Red Bull. While I was doing that, working till 1, 2, 3 a.m. Like Rio Tinto was
really
our biggest
grinding,
client. So it was quite interesting because you'd stay up late. But I loved it because it gave me such a solid foundation for business. I'd go, there was Sam Walsh, the CEO, and then there was Gina Reinhart. They had meetings, and I was like, oh my God, I want to review these minutes. What are they talking about? This is so fascinating. So it was a really, really solid start to my business as an auditor. But yeah, kind of end up leaving there because I was focusing on my business at the time. End up selling that during that time, or about a year later, actually, maybe 2 years. Alto Capital were a company that was listing DC2, which as we were formerly known. I got asked to come on the board of DC2 at the time as a non-executive director. So it was a cool opportunity for me. I think I was 27 at the time. Came on as a non-exec. I was getting more and more involved with the business. So I was like, look, can you come on as an executive director and help out a bit more? And then it got to the point where, in the background, I was kind of saying, guys, we should be changing strategy here. We should be doing a few other bits and pieces, not just infrastructure, more services. So just under 2 years ago, I stepped up as the MD, and I guess the rest is history, And now I'm here at Adisyn. We've changed branding and stuff since. It's not DC2 anymore. But
yeah, it's had a bit of a transformation. And you just talked about there the shift that it had. So originally, Adisyn, previously DC2, you're talking about infrastructure for cloud predominantly. And what was really the structure of that company? And then when you came in, how has it then changed and evolved, given that, rapidly the environment of this tech is constantly shifting?
It started out with probably more three key areas. There's a data center we have down in Bibra Lake. There's a cloud platform based here in Perth and Darwin. Separately, there's also a modular division, which essentially the idea of that division is it's modularized data centers. Predominantly for crypto mining, crypto hosting mining. We don't mine it ourselves, but we host the miners up on renewable energy sites. We got one up in the Midwest. We've got one over in Victoria as well. So very, very infrastructure focused, which you can do quite well in that space, but it's also very expensive. You need a lot of money when you're going up against Microsoft and AWS and Amazon, and they're spending billions. So as we're kind of going down this path of the infrastructure, I was kind of saying to people in the background, I get that we're taking on these, $1 trillion giants head on, but realistically, our niche should be that we offer the services on top. We should be able to say, look, we're going to establish that relationship with the client. We can provide you with the managed IT services, but we can also host that infrastructure with sovereign capabilities. So we end up doing 2 acquisitions since I've come on board. One was Attained, managed service provider that we acquired that kind of gave us the managed services capability. And then we acquired another cybersecurity business called Thomas Cyber because, cyber's just getting bigger and bigger. So it was more so about getting that vertical integration and expanding. So it wasn't just purely infrastructure focused where 9 times out of 10 we were dealing with other IT providers. We were dealing with people that controlled that relationship with the end client and, we're at their mercy. It's more so focused now on establishing that relationship with the end client and being able to offer them those additional services. And as we spoke about before, more recently, we've kind of really fine-tuned that focus, really focus on the defence industry support chain. So that's something we can probably talk about a bit as well.
We'll get to that, but I always like to sort of, establish the origins. And you said there a few bits about managed service providing, and I think many people would be aware of what that encapsulates. But if we were, what were some of the things that you guys were offering within that realm? And then, we'll get to the defence stuff, which I think is the more exciting bit.
Yeah, we started out essentially saying, if you've got some data, we have a cloud platform, you can put it on your cloud platform, go. When you add that managed services layer onto it, it varies. You got your smaller clients that it might just be, we'll help you with your emails.
Your Microsoft licenses.
You're having issues there. But as you get into bigger businesses, they might start going, we got a client that's like, well, I'm setting up this new plant down in this location. I need you to help me with my network design. I need to make sure that the communication between this site and that site is secure. I need to make sure that if you're storing my data, only certain people can have access to it. And, that's a really kind of strict policy that we need to have in place. So I think it's kind of evolving more and more. So where back in the day, a managed service provider, you'd go to them, here's some money, can you install some service for me in the back office? Now it's kind of gone, well, okay, for X amount per month, these are kind of my requirements. What can you do to make sure I'm secured? What can we do to kind of look at my organisation and make sure we're more efficient and make sure we don't have any downtime, hopefully no compromises or anything like that in terms of your security. So I think that's where it's kind of evolving towards.
That's shifted. And the big point there is cybersecurity. And we were talking about, how rapidly that whole industry has shifted and really the demand
keeps shifting
and the awareness and now with the developments within AI, the cyber realm is just from a external point of view, if you hadn't considered it, it'd be quite daunting to start learning about it. So starting with that and the prevalence of it, what is evolving within the cybersecurity realm and more so maybe from an Australian point of view? What's been really unfolding over the past couple of years that people may not necessarily be aware of?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is attacks are definitely becoming more sophisticated. Like we were talking about before, even simple things like a year ago, 2 years ago, someone might send a phishing email to one of my management team and say, "Dear Mr. whoever it is, CEO Paul Arch, dear Mr. Arch, this is Blake. Please transfer $100,000 tomorrow. Thank you." And it's like, mate, that's blatantly spam.
You can tell.
But now you can see they're actually starting to target what I'm posting on LinkedIn. They're starting to go, oh, wait a minute, he talks like this, and this could be the advent of AI as well. Might not necessarily be a person doing this. They're starting to become more sophisticated where people might get an email and go, oh, actually, that does sound like Blake. Maybe I should do this without actually maybe calling me first. So I think what you're kind of starting to see in the cyberspace in terms of attack, they are becoming more sophisticated. Businesses are storing more and more data. Your data is becoming more critical because, with personal information, I might be able to get certain information and maybe it's getting harder to open a bank account, but I might be able to do certain checks on you as well and get more information on you around that. So I think that's becoming more and more kind of prevalent in the industry. But then you've also got on the flip side of that, the government's starting to clamp down on it as well. So they're recognising, wait a minute, there is a huge risk here if businesses don't take this stuff seriously, that this can lead to issues, maybe not in that company, but over here in this company because they're holding their data as well. So government's starting to crack down on it with some pretty stringent fines if you do get compromised and you don't report it, and they're trying to make sure that people take this this segment kind of seriously, I guess.
The awareness, it's I sort of correlate it to some of the other insurances that people get, at least some of the cybersecurity platforms. Most people have home insurance or car insurance, but data is not really something that people have gotten to that point of view of, I want to make sure my data is secured and almost insured.
Yeah, it's risky doing that. Like, I think the biggest thing is don't put your head in the sand. Don't go, oh, yeah, we'll worry about that later. Oh, it's going to cost a bit too much. Let's not do anything about it. Because if you get compromised, you might look at it and go, okay, I've got insurance, but it's still going to be costly financially, and it's also your reputational damage as well. People start to go, well, can I trust this business with my data? And if there's an issue here, what other issues are there within that organisation? So I think the worst thing you can do is put your head in the sand around it, because even if you have to spend a bit of money on getting, say, an audit or some assessments done, you're going to be glad that you did it, because you're going to see, okay, well, these are the vulnerabilities we have, and you can put a plan in place and go, okay, how do we kind of address this over time?
And we'll drill a bit more on that. I mean, the cybersecurity realm, you just talked about the government being a bit more of a crackdown on it because of all the data breaches, and we see them almost quite regularly every month. And
they're just the big ones, right?
Yeah,
just the big
exactly. And there's almost the I guess, international bodies that monitor it and talk about just hundreds of thousands of information that's either, lost or supposedly, stolen. So saying that the government has really flipped a switch and now cracking down on it, that's probably where the opportunity is emerging for you guys, seeing that, all right, anyone working within or working with the government now has a much more stringent policy. As you either got cybersecurity, but we were saying before we talked about what are the policies predating it to show that there were steps in place to stop this potentially happening. When did this shift really start happening from a government top-down approach, and where is that really flooding into maybe industry-specific, or is it agnostic, which I'm assuming is more the case?
Yeah, I guess it depends who you talk to. Some people would say it started a while ago. Other people might say it started a bit more recently. I think definitely I've noticed a big kind of shift in the last maybe 2, 3, 4 years in terms
COVID
of
sort of.
Yeah, and that's what I think. As we started working from home, as everything became a lot more online, there's been a big push to take away from things of doing something physically, even paying for cash. It's all going on card now. There is definitely this shift to move everything online, and I think the government's probably changed their tune a bit, where they've said, if businesses aren't taking this seriously, then we've got to really force them to take it seriously. There's going to be another World War III, and we won't get into that too much, but it's there's probably not going to be as much of, okay, guys, men on the ground with arms, even though there are certain wars that go on like that. A lot of the warfare goes on online. It's going on and going, okay, what's my enemy doing over there? Okay, what are they kind of developing? How do we get in front of that as well? Cyber's always evolving. It's not like you just put in some protection, one layer of protection, 2 layers of protection, go, okay, I'm good now, because within 6 to 12 months that could be redundant as well. Yeah, so it's always evolving.
So then, again, you talked about Adisyn shifting and the rebrand, which we'll probably go through a bit. But you said that the focus has now been shifting towards some of the defence and the opportunities within that, and that sort of piqued my interest more so from a point of view that, you wouldn't necessarily think of it, but there must be opportunities with, I guess, the companies that are servicing that defence industry and maybe externally. Where and how has this sort of progression been unfolding within Adisyn, and I mean, how is it going, for one?
Yeah. I think there's huge opportunity in that space. There's probably a few kind of layers to that. So we started out with the infrastructure. We started doing the managed services, and there's a quite broad customer base there. So for a while now, we've been reviewing and going, okay, well, where really are the opportunities in the space in terms of what we offer? We're down in Bibra Lake. There's an Australian marine complex just down the road, and the government is starting to throw huge amounts of money. It's like, you look at AUKUS, they're saying estimates of up to $368 billion they're going to spend on that. Even more when you start looking at things like cyber and such. So there's a heap of government money going towards that, because the government wants to build our sovereign capability. We're still a relatively small company, so we're not going to be going after the primes or anything like that. That's a hard slog. But we believe there's a massive space that's just not being serviced in the SME market. It's the guys that, are still decent, maybe 20 starting out to, 100, 200 employees or so, that aren't getting the government contracts directly, but they're the defence industry support chain. So they're supporting the guys that are getting a lot of these bigger contracts. They could be amazing at manufacturing. They could be amazing at what they do. But 9 times out of 10, they have no idea what they're doing with data. They have no idea how to protect it. They just think it's they don't think it's worthless, but they just think, I don't know, who cares and stuff like that. The government's coming out and saying, no, you need to care about this. If you want to work with us, you need to make sure that any information you're holding is secure. Information you're holding is stored within Australia as well, because you've got all these risks around sovereignty, and COVID highlighted this, that if you're storing data in other geopolitical jurisdictions, well, that government could essentially just come around and say, oh, that's our data now, we're going to have a look at that. So, yeah, I think there's a big shift kind of happening there. And a lot of that probably did stem from COVID. I think COVID highlighted that our manufacturing capability here in Australia is subpar. It highlighted that a lot of kind of capabilities we have within Australia are subpar, and when the borders are open, it's great, but as soon as they shut, we scramble around going, crap, what are we going to do?
Yeah, and it's almost that thinking into the future, if anything like that did happen again, or, there are global conflicts that are going on, and who knows where that eventuates. Hopefully, touch wood, there's sort of hopeful resolutions.
Oh my gosh, it's lemonade, it's not wood.
No, I know. But, I had heard that, human civilization, I don't think we've ever had a period of time where there hasn't been a conflict, which isn't great to know, but, that almost the truth. But, talking about that, how are you guys, I guess, offering those services for companies to really get their data secured? I mean, what are some of the processes that you guys look at? What do you facilitate for them? I can imagine the first thing you said is like an audit and just reviewing them and kind of showing them the hood of the car and being like, you guys are missing the entire engine, sort of a vibe.
Yeah, no, we never tell them they're missing the engine, but we might say to them, the engine needs a bit of work. It really depends on the client. The best thing you can do when we take over a client is an audit, because you don't know what you don't know. And we do get clients coming in going, no, look, we know what we're doing. It's fine. Just we want this. But the idea for us is about not using kind of this technical jargon to bully someone. It's actually going, no, we want to work with you on this. So let's start out right. Let's actually look at what you have. What is actually critical in your business? You're like, well, this part is really critical. Okay, well, let's put more attention into that and go, but our budget's only this, so maybe we don't have to focus on this as much, but this is, we've got to keep that 100% protected and secure, because when you talk about cyber and everyone says, you've got to do this, you've got to do that, how long is a piece of string? And you can add so many layers to make sure you're protected, but not every business has unlimited funds. So you really got to kind of balance that. So it really comes down to what the client's doing in terms of what services we offer, and 9 times out of 10 it does just start with an audit, and it's from there you can take it on further and go, okay, well, we want to do penetration testing, where you want to go, okay, this is my network, get into it, see what you can do, see where there's kind of bits that are lagging. Training staff's a big one as well. A majority of the time when someone or an organisation gets compromised, it's because of human error, and it's just like I was saying before with cyber, it's not like you just go in, train your staff and go, okay, we're done now forever. You've got to have that regular training going on. You've got to have that regular testing going on, because then it almost becomes part of a culture. And a lot of the sad thing is, in a lot of organisation, employees would just say, well, this is just a job. Who cares if something happens? I'll just get a job somewhere else. So it's really up to the board and the owners of the business to go, wait a minute, guys, like this is actually more, it's my livelihood as well. And
you got to buy into
that's it. So let's make sure that we bring this culture down to show people, well, this isn't just a job. Like, you're here for a massive chunk of your week. Let's actually make sure that we're doing everything we can to protect the business, because when the business grows, you grow with it as well, and we can create more opportunities.
And you said, flashback to the point, talking about, I guess, some of the damages of, a potential attack on data. I mean, being within the industry, you've probably seen a lot more of how that's changed. I mean, from my external, it used to be that someone would buy or, take the data and then ransom it back. But now it's not necessarily ransoming it back to the company. It might be saying we're taking it to the individual and almost using like a multiple
still ransom there at some point.
Yeah, I guess. There's like a multiple ransoming, and there's more extraction of value. I mean, when you're talking about the damages of what it can do to a company, other than just downtime and not being able to function, I mean, some of the costs that people may or may not be aware of. I mean, how big does like a breach in data really impact a company on any real scale?
I think the biggest thing is your reputational damage, and that's a hard thing to measure. But when you look at compromises like what happened with Optus, people start to go, what the hell? Like, why am I using these guys? Maybe I should be looking elsewhere as well. You can't measure that from day one. That could be going on for a number of years. And your reputation's everything, right? It can take 20 years to build, 5 minutes to lose. So it's one of those things that I think a lot of people, when they're thinking about cyber, they're thinking about compromises, don't just look at, okay, well, I'm insured, I'm paying X amount per month, I'm covered. Because once people start to get this thought in their head that maybe their data isn't secure, they will start to think, well, what else is going on over there? What other issues could they be having? So I think that's a big one. And I mean, the other one as well is the government is really clamping down on it. Like, they've come out now and said, if you have, this is probably more in extreme cases, but if you have a compromise and you don't report it, so there are organisations you need to report it to, you can get fined 50 million. You can get fined up to 1/3 of your revenue. They're saying, like, don't just treat this lightly. Like, this is going to be an issue moving forward. It's going to be a bigger and bigger issue. So make sure that we're covered, or that you're covered in this regard. And I mean, they're getting better. There are some grants, some incentives they're helping with business to kind of help afford this sort of stuff. But I would like to hope that moving forward, the government starts to go, look, we're putting this obligation on a lot of smaller businesses, but we're here to help in this way as well. They probably could do a bit more in that regard. But yeah, I think a lot of the time people forget, and I'm sure a lot of people listening, if they are a small business owner, they go, oh, it's all great, but how am I going to be able to afford that? Inflation's going through the roof. I've got costs coming out here, costs coming out there. How am I going to be able to afford to protect myself? So I think that, the government's putting this obligation on people, then they probably do need to balance that out a bit more as well.
Interesting. And again, being that you guys are focusing on the defence sector, or at least the companies that are complementing that service, I mean, where else are you guys potentially looking at, I guess, going for and trying to offer services? I mean, how broad does this really these services offer?
Yeah, so this is when I say we're not necessarily going after defence itself. It's this defence industry supply chain, which is just, it's an abundance of businesses. It could be something in a business in manufacturing. It could be a software business. So it's a broad industry.
The whole ecosystem.
Exactly it. Yeah.
Down.
The only other one that I kind of like to target is I do like local government. Everyone has a different opinion about them, but I think once you get in with the local government, and the hard part is finding the ones that actually want to make a change, or actually want to listen. So that's where a lot of people don't like them. You go, you should be doing this and doing that, and they'll go, that's great. Yeah, maybe. But the ones that actually do listen and want to invest in their infrastructure, there are some out there. I think they're always kind of good to work with as well.
Okay, so then now, again, you're listed on the ASX, which, I mean, from an external point of view, might be like, I'd be more, I guess, acclimatized to a private company. But nonetheless, you're on the ASX. I mean, you've got investors and you've got shareholders and you've got a board. So talk us through, I guess, what is the current landscape for like a company like Adisyn on the ASX, given that, we said it's mining and biotech, and probably if you're on the NASDAQ or the US, you'd probably get a little bit more attention given that climate. I mean, what is it like being a data, I don't know what the best category would be to label you guys as, but being on the ASX, and I'll drill down on a few more of those points, but what's that realm like?
I tell you what, the last couple of years have been a really hard slog in terms of the market. I think anyone in the microcap space in tech has been absolutely destroyed. And it's all been about cash flow. Like since I've come in almost 2 years ago now, when I first came in, we were burning through, a lot of money. The exact number eludes me, but maybe 2.5-3 million a year, and that's just not sustainable. No. Especially as investors are losing confidence. Probably, maybe in our company, but in the general the broader market. So the last couple of years have really been about, well, what are you doing to kind of get cash flow positive or cash flow neutral? Like since I've come in, I tell people I think there was about 25, 26 staff when I started. Of that, I think we're up maybe 23, 24 staff now, but about 2 or 3 of the original remain. So we did a massive round of redundancies, a massive amount of restructuring. Overhaul. Yeah, when I came in, I renegotiated contracts with suppliers to kind of cut those costs where we could. And then that's also, we've started to go down a bit of a different path now as well. So the restructuring's a bit of that. But the last couple of years have really been about, okay, well, show us what you're doing to kind of improve your cash flow. And then in my opinion, I know there's now talk with interest rates, everyone thinks they're going to drop, but they're going to stay, they're going to go up. I think that confidence is starting to return a bit as well. And in certain areas, it's not going to happen broadly across the market, but I think moving forward, it's not going to be, okay, we're doing all this different stuff. We've got our fingers in many different pies. It's like, no, what am I investing in? You've got to be laser focused in what you do. And that's why we're really focusing on the defence industry supply chain, because we've got the capability to do it. The parts that we aren't doing at the moment, we've openly said to the market, we're going to look at doing partnerships with people as well. It's, there's a wealth of knowledge out there rather than us trying to reinvent the wheel. It's, getting people to be able to go, well, you're good at that, we're good at this, let's work together on this part. And I think moving forward, at least, that'll be the strategy that will kind of work.
So then you said, there's been a fair bit of sort of readjustment within the
internal.
Yeah. So then, talking from the board point of view, you said it's probably changed a fair bit as well over the time. Who else is surrounding you from that top line management, and probably instilling this new culture, new direction that, we said from the outset that it's probably the ones that are driving the buy into the culture?
Yeah, in terms of strategy, it was in February this year we brought on a guy by the name of Harry Corellis, and I really rate Harry. He's kind of brought a bit of fresh air back into the company, because he's laser focused in what he does. So he kind of says, what do we want to be? What do we want to do? Well, this is good at. This is where we want to go down. This is the path we want to go down. He's like, well, let's focus on that. Everything else is just kind of noise. And, we've openly said to the market as well, we're reviewing all our assets within the company for potential divestment. If something doesn't fit, then we go, well, if it doesn't fit in with that strategy, well, why are we doing it? Then, really, we've got to answer that. So Harry's our strategic advisor. He's the chairman of our advisory board. Harry's also good in that he kind of says, well, let's build an advisory board. We've got the management team that can execute on it, but let's build the team that can help you guys. If you're not sure about certain specifics, we'll find those people to help guide you through that. And as we expand the team, we can employ more people because I'm still very conscious on cash flow in terms of what we're doing. So you don't want to just go out and employ all this staff and then increase your cash burn. So it's just finding that balance there. But Harry, that's a relatively, what are we now?
That's
April.
2
That's
months,
a relatively
2-3
new change,
months,
but
yeah.
he's come in like just go. Let's get this done, that done. He's starting to introduce us to a lot of people in terms of the partnerships. So if I go to Harry and say, well, this is maybe a part that we need to really be focusing on, he'll go, okay, well, I know some guys, or I'll find the guys. I'll do that introduction there. So that's what I think the next few months for us are going to be about, is starting to work on these partnerships and out those partnerships, build out our advisory board as well, so that we can really start to execute on our strategy. What we're talking about before is, we'd restructured the business, pretty much the whole management team from DC2 is gone. We've got a new management team now that I'm kind of confident in. They came across from Attain. We've got a new COO, a new CIO, a new CFO. It's just
it's a full new team.
It's just a full new team. And everyone's quite driven, so it's good always being able to bounce off people like that as well. And it's my job to make sure that everyone kind of stays focused as well in terms of what we're doing. So the last couple of years have really been about stabilising the business, stabilising the management team, and then now it's going, okay, well, we've done that. We're confident with that. Let's hit go. Let's actually start to work on this new strategy and build it up.
Yeah, and then that probably takes a lot of the next question out of my mouth, which is where the focus is for the next 12 months. And I mean, if you're looking at the pie chart, you said, laser focused on this defence network and the companies that are, I guess, contributing to that. I mean, over the next 12 months, more so from a shareholder and investor point of view, I mean, what can we really anticipate seeing coming from Adisyn as you guys embark on this, I guess, revitalised? I don't know what the best term would be, but there's this new direction of, a clear focus.
Yeah. Well, I'd be disappointed in myself if we hadn't by then announced a number of new partnerships, because we want to build out our portfolio of kind of service offerings as well. So the first step is getting these partnerships, making sure for this segment of the market that we're going after, they can come to us and go, yeah, okay, you can help us with this. And even if it's not us doing the work, we can say to them, you know what, this is a guy or this is a business that you need to talk to, because we got to build that authority with these customers. We got to make sure that in their mind or in the industry's mind, if you're in the SME market for the defence industry supply chain, Adisyn is the business that you want to go to for it. So definitely building out that. The advisory board, we actually put out a new investor presentation a couple of weeks ago with a lot of this. We want to build out the advisory board, anything that's non-core to the business. We want to look at, is there a way to dispose of those assets so we can just focus on what we're doing? And then I think as we, at least in the next 2 to 3 months, build out that part of the business, it's then going to be really pushing the marketing. It's getting more BDMs in. It's actually going, okay, this is our product offering. This is our service offering. We've got to get in front of these guys and actually start selling to them. And we've got some clients that are in that space, but if you want to focus on it, there's certain, I guess, professional groups, there's certain kind of organisations that we should really be targeting on our marketing. And that's what I like about this strategy, where before we'd have a bit of more of a general marketing approach. Now it's like, no, we're just going down this segment of the market, and it's a market that is getting literally billions of dollars thrown at it. Yeah. It's a market that actually needs help in terms of what we're doing. Like, they might be good in certain areas, but the majority of them will be clueless when it comes to their data. So they can go, well, you guys take care of that. We've got X amount of budget to work towards. What can we do to kind of make this work?
Well, I mean, me thinking out loud, I mean, you're talking about defence and the budget that's being sent, or the money. And I think to what's happening in the US with, I guess, some of the money that they're using, because my audience is predominantly mining, is that there's a lot of money being then divested towards getting and securing resources.
Critical
and then I think
and all that,
when you start looking at that spread...
It's all sovereign capability, though. I reckon COVID has just highlighted it. Like, there's just such a lapse in a lot of governments, a lot of countries, in terms of we are not self-sufficient. Globalisation is great, but it really highlighted that there's some holes in this whole strategy. Yeah,
but that was my point there about, the spread of money that's coming from the defence is not just necessarily going to be, well, from a supply chain, nuts and bolts or something, but it goes potentially all the way down to the raw materials. And I guess that's me sort of talking about the audience that follows me. And it's sort of
the whole ecosystem.
Talks about that awareness of, you don't know how you are connected to that sort of that machine that's ticking, but there's so many opportunities. And I always round out conversations with key takeaways. I think that's just the way people process information. So if there's three or maybe more, three key takeaways from the discussion we've had about Adisyn, where it's going, and maybe more so the general sector, I mean, what would those three takeaways be from today's conversation?
Yeah, three takeaways. I'd say, one, anyone listening, I would recommend they look at our recent investor presentation. Like, to me, we've put out our strategy in there, the phases that we'll be going through, and that's a checklist, right? Like, we've got to hold ourselves accountable. So I'd say to anyone, have a look at that and go, okay, well, these guys are saying they're going to do this. And then, within 3, 6, 12 months, have a look back and go, okay, tick, they did that. They didn't do that. Well, why not? Okay, well, they did this. That's probably the biggest one, I'd say, the takeaway there. 2, I'd say to any business owner listening, or even any employee, when it comes to things like cybersecurity threats, please don't put your head in the sand. It's one of those things where well,
everyone goes, it's not going to happen to me.
It's
that sort of don't. Like out of sight, out of mind.
Yeah, and I'm not saying put all your company funds into cyber, but maybe just have the opinion at your next board meeting of someone, a director, asking the question, hey guys, what are we actually doing to protect ourselves? What are we doing to protect our data, our clients' data, our stakeholders' data? I think that's definitely a big one. You don't have to come to Adisyn for those services. There are other people out there. I'd like them to come to Adisyn for those services. But I think definitely keep an eye on that. And the biggest one is anyone that hasn't actually looked into defence, I'd say, actually, even Google it, see what the language they're using around the defence industry supply chain, and how critical, WA in particular, but South Australia as well, how critical, our state is going to become from this investment. Everyone looks at WA and Perth as a mining town. I know it is a mining town, it definitely is. But there is some diversification that is coming our way, and being a micro-cap tech business in Perth, it's probably, they wouldn't say there's too many of us out there.
I was going to say, there's probably not overly.
But that's opportunity, right? And I love to use that word before as well, where a lot of people will say, well, there's risks here, there's this. I was like, that's just opportunity. Like, if you actually can look through all the noise and go, wait a minute, there is a segment here that we can kind of take the bull by the horns, why would you not take that opportunity? Yeah.
So then, those that are potentially interested, and again, we talked about a lot in the conversation. I think maybe one of the key will be cybersecurity, at least from my point of view, but also, again, the defence that's starting to be spent. Yep. For those that want to follow Adisyn and stay in contact and, reach out to yourself in particular, I mean, where can listeners and viewers go to do that?
Yeah, I mean, we've got our website, adisyn.com.au. We do post a bit on LinkedIn, so I highly recommend you give us a follow on LinkedIn. Otherwise, any questions, if someone wants to email me, just email investors at Adisyn, adisyn.com.au. I'd be happy to answer any questions. If you're based in Perth, I meet up with people for coffees and such. Always love to have a chat about this stuff. So I think that's probably going to be the best way to get in contact with us. Yeah.
Oh, fantastic. No, again, it's exciting because it's not a realm that I particularly get to speak with.
Not in Perth, I get it.
It's good. It's good to actually see that there's more than just sort of mining and mining services, which is fantastic.
Biotech as well. I think biotech's starting to build up a bit more in Perth. So,
definitely.
Yeah.
But no, I appreciate you taking the time, Blake. It's an interesting realm. I've got a little bit of info. I'm sure that listeners have now become aware of something new, I would assume. But yeah, thank you so much for taking the time to speak with me on the show today.
I appreciate it. As I said, just keep an eye on us. Over the last few years, DC2 to Adisyn, there has been a bit of chopping and changing. There's been a heap of restructuring that was kind of done. So I'd just say to anyone, put us on your watch list and hold us accountable. If you read our investor presentation and just see if we are using that as a checklist. Yeah.
Good. Code is AI1.
Yep, AI1.
Yeah, so there we go. Put in the whatever trading platform you've got, put it on your watch list. But yeah, thank you so much for speaking.
No, thanks for having me. Cheers.
Thanks for listening to the Marketable podcast. Please remember that the topics and stocks discussed in this podcast are not financial advice. If you enjoyed this episode, please make sure to like, share, and follow. You can follow The Marketable on all our socials and keep up to date with global market insights.